What's up everybody, it's Robin Gaming here. So the reason why I'm making this video is because it just seems like there's a fundamental issue with Naughty Dog's multiplayer team. Now don't get me wrong, Uncharted 4 of course has been out already for 1 year almost. The time really flies and I've been enjoying the multiplayer ever since. I do want to point that out, despite me having made a couple of videos now over the last year where I've been complaining about, you know, things that are in the multiplayer or specifically things that actually weren't in the multiplayer. I do think it's a good multiplayer mode, and I also think that Naughty Dog is very good at making multiplayer modes, because you can't deny that with Uncharted 2, 3, with The Last of Us and with Uncharted 4 now, they've put out these multiplayer modes that have had their own small little core communities that have really enjoyed it and that have grown attached to the multiplayer modes that they've put out, and me myself as well. You know, I really enjoy it for what it is, and even Uncharted 4 now, despite me maybe at first not being a big fan of the whole team-based idea, they did pull it off well. It's a balanced multiplayer mode with great core mechanics, playing in 60 frames per second. It's a good multiplayer. I do really believe that. At the same time, Naughty Dog's multiplayer team's fundamental issue seems to be that they always manage to screw up their multiplayer and make them progressively worse by time. And not just that, they also just don't seem to want to listen to their community. Despite sometimes saying that they do or that they really try to, they don't. It just really seems that way. And the reason why I've come to, you know, making this video now is actually because of a tweet yesterday by Cogburn, who's one of the lead multiplayer designers over at Naughty Dog, who started tweeting about the classic mode, which of course right now is still in beta, but we're gonna get to that in a bit. But he was tweeting how, with a poll pretty much, should classic mode spawn sidekicks, heavy weapons and mysticals instead of just heavy weapons? Now, I don't need to tell you, this is a crazy question, because the whole reason why people wanted a classic mode to be there is to get rid of the sidekicks and to get rid of the mysticals, to go away from that, to go back to traditional Uncharted 2 or Uncharted 3 multiplayer like they were used to, with no down system and with no extra additional crutches to it. So I don't need to tell you that the response to this tweet was quite negative. First of all, the poll results were 88% saying no, 12% saying yes, and a whole lot of negative tweets down below it asking why the hell they should possibly want to add this to classic mode, the one mode people have asked for that would go back to traditional Uncharted multiplayer gameplay. And this has just led me to making this video where it just seems that over the last year, and once again, Naughty Dog really seems to make their multiplayers worse over time, and this has happened with like all of their multiplayers. Look at Uncharted 2, which launched in a great way. People really liked it for what it was, and then with like patch 1.04, I remember, they brought the health down 50% when nobody had asked for it, all of a sudden making it like a traditional Call of Duty health system that people didn't even want. Uncharted 3 is maybe like the only exception to the rule, but even there, in the first 6 months, there were a lot of balancing issues where they kept buffing and nerfing certain guns, making other ones again overpowered, so they had a lot of trouble with that for 6 months to a year straight or something like that. With The Last of Us multiplayer, it got worse over time by adding a lot of these weapons that people did not like others playing with at all, like the tactical shotgun and stuff. And now with Uncharted 4 multiplayer again, they keep making these changes and adding things that people simply didn't ask for, that they don't want. And so the question really is, why? Why are you doing this, Naughty Dog? Now, I've pretty much written down a couple of things that have happened over the last year with this multiplayer mode that I still can't believe, you know, are the choices they make for it. So let's get into it, right? Because you know, the very first thing here is the level system. Now, Uncharted 4 multiplayer launched without a leveling system, which is kind of a weird thing because every single big multiplayer game out there right now has a leveling system. Something that shows your progression, that you can show off to other people being like, yes, I've played this multiplayer for a very long time. Uncharted 4 launched without a leveling system, and that's cool because I've heard Naughty Dog during their streams also, some of the developers were talking about that. We at Naughty Dog have grown tired of the traditional leveling system out there, so we decided to get rid of it. Now that's a very respectable, I guess, decision to make, but of course you have to come up with something there to replace it then, something that actually proves to be an improvement over the traditional leveling system. But no, they didn't do that. They simply got rid of the leveling system and had nothing else to show for it. So many people complained about this. They wanted the leveling system to come back to show their levels to other people out there. So what did Naughty Dog do? Pretty much a month after Uncharted 4 came out, they did add back in the leveling system that people had asked for, but guess what? They didn't want to fully admit to it again, because your level cannot be shown off to anybody in your lobby except your friends. You can only really see your own level, or your friends can see so, and you get a couple of rewards for reaching certain levels in Uncharted 4 multiplayer. That's crazy, because once again, people wanted the leveling system to go further than that, so why did you not do this? Classic mode. Now this is like the biggest thing that I just really can't reach. Me and many others had been asking for a classic mode for such a long time now. We wanted to go back, or to at least have the option to go back to traditional Uncharted multiplayer. Of course, once again, I like the team-based approach that they did, but I think it's good to have options. I think it's good to have several game modes that all try to do different things. And so, what did Naughty Dog do finally, like half a year after Uncharted 4 multiplayer came out? They started coming out with a classic mode, but they had to, of course, do something again to it. It was in beta. Now, I've never seen a multiplayer mode ever have a game mode be in beta. I heard that Rainbow Six Siege apparently did it, but it's like one of the only games out there that had a multiplayer game mode in beta. So, why? And what did they do? They had classic mode with a very first version in beta. People really enjoyed that, but guess what? They could only play it for one weekend, and that was it. After that, it was gone again. The next weekend, it reappeared with changes to it that people didn't like, and after that, it had been gone for exactly 3 months. Yes, 3 months it had been gone. This classic mode that people asked for, that they brought back in beta, had been gone for 3 months until they finally brought it back, like this month in February. And what did they do? They brought it back once again in beta. It's just like, I mean, I really can't reach it. How did you just once again relaunch this mode in beta? And it's also like, you know what classic mode should be. You know it simply should be going back to traditional Uncharted multiplayer. Why should that be in beta in the very first place? And then now you're tweeting about adding sidekicks and mysticals to the classic mode, which obviously people don't want. Why? I just really don't get that. There's two more things that I could quickly talk about. So they added, you know, after people have been asking once again for more options in their game modes. They wanted something like a free-for-all mode, which solo players could play, or maybe something like 3-team deathmatch, a little more small-skilled, not as much about the big team-based modes, because there were already like 4 team-based modes in there, being Plunder and Command, and Team Deathmatch, Ranked Team Deathmatch. What did they do? The one game mode they added was King of the Hill. Once again, a more traditional team-based multiplayer game mode that nobody at all had been asking for to be added to Uncharted 4 multiplayer, but that's what we got, King of the Hill, and nothing else after that anymore. And now you see again with DLC weapons that they're adding, yes, it's possible to obtain them, but you need to buy these gameplay chests, you need to buy, and they just cost a lot of relics to actually obtain, and once you actually get a gameplay chest, you have to pretty much get lucky and get the one weapon you actually want to play with. It's pretty much, once again, microtransactions all over the place, just like with the Last of Us multiplayer. In general, once again, I really have been enjoying Uncharted 4 multiplayer, and I think Naughty Dog is good at coming up with cool multiplayer concepts. They work them out well at launch, but the whole trajectory afterwards of the 1 or 2 years that the multiplayer will be alive, it seems like they don't want to listen to their community. They always think that they need to stand pretty much. That's really the impression I get, is they feel like they stand above everyone else and that they make the decisions, and even when they start listening to the community, they pretty much half-ass it. They somewhat bring back what people want, but at the same time have to always give their own twist to it to make it seem like, you know, their multiplayers are super well thought out and they have their own reasons why they need to do something, when those reasons never really make sense. And let's be honest, Naughty Dog multiplayer modes have never been popular enough to the point where really that many people care. Right now it's actually hard to find lobbies out there, not that many people seem to even be playing this anymore. Why can't you simply cater to your core community that really enjoys this multiplayer to make them happy, so that they will always keep returning and actually also recommend their friends to, of course, play it. It's really that simple. Just listen a bit more to your community. Why do you always need to make these choices that people don't ask for? I just don't get it myself. So with that being said, let me know how you feel about Naughty Dog's multiplayer modes. It already makes me pretty worried for, of course, The Last of Us 2 coming up, which I know the very first Last of Us had this big community that you know, that really liked the multiplayer, and I simply hope they make the right decisions for whatever is coming up next again. So with that being said, let me know your thoughts, and for now, thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.